there's with PulseX, right? Because this is where it's all going to take place. The AMM bot is going to effectively go around and trade on all the copied dexes, right? So Ethereum V3, right, is going to be, I'm sorry, Uniswap V3 is going to be copied over to Pulse. And then going to run the AMM bot, right? So it's going to effectively sell some of that shit for Pulse. Excuse me, anything that's related to ETH at a ratio of like 1 to 1 million or 1.2 million or something. And then bring it back to PulseX. PulseX, though, is only V2. So in the long run, PulseX has to be V3. Like when you have something that like V3, where it is so much more capital efficient, it doesn't artificially force your liquidity like a straight line, because that's not normal. Like we pull up, this is the actual liquidity. A good example is one with more liquidity, say Ethereum and Bitcoin, right? Wrapped Bitcoin. So you don't, when I say an efficient market congregates at the price, you can see this is real data. I'm not just saying this. This is how the actual pair of wrapped Bitcoin and ETH looks, right? They congregate at the market. PulseX is V2, garbage, right? Like that's like you have to put 50% of this asset, 50% of this asset. Like not ideal, right? There's going to be a V3 front end. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so far we know PulseX is going to be V2. Assuming PulseChain launches before V3 is available, which is that May 2023.
I believe so.
Man, this May joke is going. It's got legs. It's got legs right now. Mid-May, it's still got legs. I wonder, is it just going to be a temporary thing? Where is that kind of, you think that's Richard's plan too? Like, okay, as soon as V3 is available, we're gonna assuming PulseChain launches before then, just do V2, and then hey, PulseChain just got an upgrade. Check it out. We're gonna market that now. Now you got V3 as well. You think that's going to happen, or how do you see it playing out?
So I think there's a couple options here. Richard Hart, many videos, really likes V3, right? He's talked about really liking V3. QuickSwap, which Bishop brought up a minute ago, put forth something in their DAO, and they purchased the license to V3 for about $350,000, right? This is what they said in their post. So like, if you raise $1.9 billion, right, and this is a clear, gigantic innovation that is so much better, like to me, owning a couple of businesses, it makes more sense to just pay the fee, right? Or try to come up with your own version of this so you don't have to pay the license, right? Which you think like, okay, remember that feature? I was like, I'm paying a developer to actually create this bot for me, right? I should have contacted you. But that maybe that is a feature that's actually in the maybe he can come out with his own version of V3 on there, right? Because if you were like, okay, well, maybe he comes out with V2, and then when V3 is available, then they change to V3. But then you have the incentive token, right? Which is, you don't need that in V3. So like if you V2, because it's 50-50, you can represent your position in that pool by a percentage of the total, right? Think of like Hex, right? So when you stake, you own a percentage of the totality of staked Hex, right? In that pool, represented by something called a T-share, right? So when you do this on V2, it's called an LP token or incentive token on PulseX, right? Or cake on PancakeSwap. On V3, I could set my position up as this. You could set yours up as this. Somebody else could set it up as this. Somebody else could do like something like this. So because they're not fungible positions, they're not the exact same position, right? Like they're represented by an NFT, right? Because NFT, non-fungible token, meaning that there's a slight difference in all of them. So and if you look at this, right, the ratio right here is 0.0784, blah, 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 right? And over here, so somebody most of these positions are different. So the NFT you hold for your position is going to be different. So what happens from a community standpoint, from a confusion for users, but because if I change stuff in my business all the time, it confuses people, right? So if I have V2 and then 2, 3, 4, 5 months later, I change to V3 and the incentive token is no longer needed, or maybe there's some other creative way that I completely oblivious to, that could be 100%. I think that a lot of people don't fully like understand DEXs and LP and the tokens involved, that could create just more confusion and mistakes and easy ways for manipulation and stealing to happen, versus maybe it is better to actually just wait until afterwards.
But isn't that what happened with Uniswap, where, I mean, they had V2 and then now they have V3 and now you can switch between both. So I just, it seems like that would be the play in my mind of, hey, now you can say PulseX got an upgrade. We have more, that's the more stuff play. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's more cost effective other than buying it, and you can still keep incentive token, which may be, hey, if you want to earn incentive token, use PulseX V2. If you want to, be more capital efficient and do other things, you do use PulseX V3. That's the more likely scenario I can see in my mind.
That's I agree. Now, here's the thing. So say that takes 5 months, right, for that to play out. Hypothetically, 2 months, whatever that time frame is, right?
Sure.
During that time frame, I've said multiple times that I'll just be using the front end for V3 on Pulse, right? Why would I provide liquidity on PulseX if I can earn a higher return on V3?
I guess incentive token would be the reason.
What's that?
I guess incentive token would be the play for that, I guess.
But we'll have to see the semantics of that. But if I can earn, if you put in 100 grand into PulseX between, say, Pulse and Hex, right, and I put 100 grand into V3, Pulse and Hex, right, and people understand that like it is a massive innovation. Think of like flip phones. Not many people use flip phones anymore, right? So like there's a smartphone, right? And people switch to this because this is so much better and far more capable of a device. That's like V3 versus V2. So it has to switch to this at some point. And if Uniswap is like, okay, cool, we see $1.9 billion here, and they like think, and they start supporting V3 on Pulse, right? That could be competition. If liquidity drains back over to this other side, because it's just going to be free tokens, right? So people could take their free tokens from PulseX where they're not earning as much fees because it's artificially making your capital less efficient, and moving back over to V3. That could be a possibility. If it happens over the course of a long enough period of time, the quicker that's going to happen, because flip phone versus smartphone, right? You're like, you want to use a flip phone? PulseX. You want to go to the smartphone? Go to V3, right? So that I think the faster it happens, it's going to be the better it's going to be, right? Or maybe he can come up with like their own version of V3 that is done differently, that doesn't affect the license, or wait for the whole package to come out after they can get the license for free. I don't know, but I think it would be really, 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 really good for PulseX to have V3 off the jump.
But how could is there a way the OA could will it to be, for it to make sense to use V2 and then make the transition easier to V3 if that was the case? And we have 2 or 3 cases we talked about on the table for it to happen. But let's say, we just launched with V2, we get V3 later on. Could the OA, somehow incentivize people to hey, this is going to be the premier place to do it. You don't need to use V3 because we've seeded the liquidity really well, or done something other to make it attractive. We're more attractive to the ecosystem at that point.
Yes, in the sense that users are going to go where like there's liquidity, right? So if all the liquidity is in one spot, that's where users tend to go, right? But on the flip side of that, if you play liquidity or you play around in that arena, it doesn't always make sense to provide liquidity in areas where there's a lot of liquidity, because then I have to share my fees with you, right? So it could vary, but yes, there's that, and I'm sure that there's plenty of things that I am not aware of that could be done, or utilizing the incentive token to maintain liquidity over there, because it makes sense. He wants the a slice of the pie, because he understands liquidity is very, very important. And if you can earn a slice of the pie every single trade, right? That's what he wants to do. So he definitely has an incentive to do that. And I'm sure that there's things that you can do when you have $1 billion+ that you can't do when you're a little fucking peon, right? Like the size of the shit that I have is nothing, like literally nothing in comparison. So I think that you have access to play different strategies that I'm not capable of seeing because I'm not there yet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm glad we have a billionaire genius founder, because I imagine he's got a whiteboard, all these different plays are on the table, and he's just like, all right, here's all the best plays. There's no losing plays, only winning. Let's make the most winning ones. And